Welcome everybody to Turn Week Thursday, a really special presentation on racial and climate justice, upending white supremacy, and the artful regeneration of our cities. This is co-presented with Sustainable Creighton University, one of our Turn partners, and features guest from Omaha, Nebraska, Dawaune Lamont Hayes. Really excited for this headliner. So great to see this great turnout coming out on Earth Day, the 51st Earth Day, the one that's going to be the tipping point for the good. We're going to start out with a land acknowledgement and a labor acknowledgement that we wrote especially for Turn Week to make the connections between Native American rights and Black and African American diaspora rights and the climate crisis and Turn, because we need 1 billion connected climate activists. But I'd now like to have Dawaune present to us his talk and what he's doing in terms of this creative re-envisioning, using the imagination, and going beyond the Petrolocene into really some beautiful things. So Dawaune, take it away.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and hello everyone. So I'll just start with a little intro. My name is Dawaune Lamont Hayes. I am 26 years old. I'm born and raised here in Omaha, Nebraska. I do a lot of things, but lately I've been calling myself a regenerative advocate. I'm a visual performing artist. I'm a journalist and founder of an organization called Noise Omaha. We do local community journalism here. And my experience with journalism and coming to learn the history of my community through storytelling is really what's pushed me and helped motivate me into regenerative advocacy. And so here I wanted to take this time to go through and kind of talk about regenerative principles and how I kind of found these definitions and how they guide me, and then ultimately into work I'm currently engaged in right now that we'll be able to explore. So the image here is actually a digital collage that I made of downtown Omaha, formerly of a place called the Jean Leahy Mall, and then I incorporated elements of the Sand Hills and the Missouri River, and as well as different types of indigenous habitat in contrast to the colonial buildings that are there, and then incorporate elements of 3 of the 4 sisters in indigenous growing, which is the sunflower, beans, and corn, and squash is the 4th sister. So regenerative, like, what is it? And for me as a journalist, one of the first things I like to do is go to etymology. Like, what is the root? Like, I need to know what the very first 2 letters mean so we can get to what these big words mean. Because oftentimes in sustainability and regenerative work, we like to use a lot of definitions that we assume people know, but it's important that when we're talking about coming back or restoring or growing or healing, that it's true that we're truly getting to the root. So means back to the original place, again, to renew once more. And it comes from French and Latin. So like also understanding where the words come from and the derivatives of the parent language really helps us understand against that colonialism and how definitions and our understanding of words affect how we interact with ourselves, people, place, and planet. Eco. I love the word eco because it comes from the environment, and it's directly tied to the place around us and humans' relationship to it. And it comes from the Greek word oikos, meaning extended family. So it consists of everything. It's a proclusive term, meaning that eco is inherent to all things that exist. And it's important that when we talk about economies or ecology or any of those things, is that we're talking about something that is whole and not separated. And then ultimately bio, designing and building structures and spaces that are inherent to life and are balancing the key functions of the vessel and the inhabitants and our environment. So then putting these words together, okay, so we've got eco, economy, nomos, connected to management, law, principles. So when I think about economy, we're thinking about the management of the hearth and home. and then regenerative, to regrow, to be renewed or restored after being damaged or lost. Healing by natural supplementation. And I really like that idea that instead of, maybe a artificial synthesis, it's more about being present and then allowing that to naturally grow and restore. And then finally, regenerative economy. Universal patterns and principles the cosmos use to build stable, healthy, and sustainable systems throughout the real world, used as a model for economic system design. This is really important because I believe that a regenerative economy and regenerative economics applied to the foundation. Everything we do is ultimately something that is going to help us make sure we survive beyond where we are today. And so I'm going to go quickly through a few slides from the Capital Institute. They break down what they call the 8 principles of regenerative economy. I highly recommend following them on Twitter and going to their website and reading these full definitions. All the photography you see in here is done by me, and I really wanted to make sure that there's a connection to the visual art and using our environment to reflect a lot of the things that I'm talking about here. It's not just some theory, it's actually things that are applied to us. So this building actually behind is a building just a few blocks away from my house. To be in right relationship. Ted said this earlier, and Kristen mentioned earlier in the land recognition and labor acknowledgement. And humanity is an integral part of an interconnected web of life. There is no separation between us and it. So how do you be in right relationship? Literally spend time outside. And I have to remind myself this because it's very easy these days to stay inside. It's comfortable, especially with the change in weather and just all kinds of things outside. But like going outside, laying on the ground in the grass, see how the world only moves as fast as you do. Oftentimes our sense of urgency is a false sense of urgency that comes from somewhere else. It rarely is aligned to our lived experience. And then bird watching, gardening, composting, get your hands in soil and to ultimately practice that right relationship. View health holistically. We often talk about health as this totally separate, this physical health, there's mental health, there's spiritual health, like they're all intrinsically connected. And true wealth is not merely money, but our wealth is connected to, our social capital, our cultural living and experiences of abundance. So a group of friends and I have worked to launch a donation-based farmers market over the summer. We had our first time last summer, and we're having our second year this summer. Mutual aid groups, book clubs, hiking groups, and knowledge networks, but recognizing that we are inherently valuable and that no amount of dollars or debt or a piece of paper can tell us how valuable or wealthy that we are. So know that. To be innovative, adaptive, and responsive. When we talk about survival of the fittest, it's often poorly misquoted when we're talking about Darwin. He wasn't talking about who's the biggest and strongest. He was talking about who is most fit, who and able to adapt best to their environment. And so when we are talking about the future of regenerative economics or just survival, we need to recognize what are the limitations and what is the need. And then we need affordable habitats and homes. Let's get creative and not rely on the methods to meet our needs. Meaning that if we're saying affordable housing is too expensive, then we ought to get creative and address that contradiction rather than using that as a cop-out to prevent us from pursuing the innovation that is necessary to achieve the outcome we seek. Empowered participation. People want to be a part of what's going on. If you've got an idea or you see something happening, you're going to need to be connected and talk to the people who are most affected and are most vulnerable. All parts must be in relationship to the larger whole and empowered to negotiate for the needs, but also enable people to add unique contributions towards their health and well-being. People want to be a part of something, to be purposeful, to have impact, and by inviting, speaking, connecting, and refraining from prescribing, Which is something that is very common to do, especially in a hyperpolarized and partisan world. It can be easy to prescribe to others what they believe and what they think and act, especially when we're talking about the climate crisis. But empowered participation can start as simple as, "Hey, how are you? What do you like to do, and what would you like to see?" Honor community and place. Nurture healthy and resilient communities and regions. I like the term bioregionalism, looking at how where we are is directly connected to everything around us. So Omaha is connected to Kansas City, which is connected to Minneapolis, which is connected to Des Moines. And as a region, we are all impacted by the changes of climate, the water cycles, et cetera. And that's going to be one of the most effective ways to plan how we address the climate crisis is as a region. In super local ways, community gardens, on-site workshops explaining how gardens work, composting, block talks, evaluating your sidewalks, talking about the needs necessary. This is really about being like, where am I and how did we get here? So if that invites you to ask about your ancestry or, where'd your parents come from, those types of things that can help you truly honor place, community in place. Edge effect abundance. This is one of my favorites because creativity and abundance flourish synergistically at the edges of systems where the bonds holding the dominant pattern in the place are weakest. So this is like about going to the people who aren't centered because that's where they're going to find the most creative solutions because they don't have access to the conventional means. So when you're interacting with your most vulnerable populations, they may have a lot of deficits in the conventional sense, but have an abundance of creativity because they don't have access to traditional capital and means. So, that is your artist communities, that's going to your new immigrant and resettled refugees in a place who have, here in Omaha, we have a large Karenni population from Southeast Asia that gardens and farms on vacant land in a community that hasn't done that in over like 4 decades. So we're seeing like this regenerative culture show up because of adaptability. A robust circulatory flow. Circulation of money, information, and the efficient use of materials are particularly critical to individuals, businesses, and economies reaching their regenerative potential. Free information is essential. I'm sharing this with you because you deserve to know this. Everyone should have the word regenerative in their mind. People should be aware of like the regenerative principles because it can give us a framework that we can begin to work with to move us beyond the stagnation that we're encountering. So this picture is actually like a stagnant pool here, like, a bunch of pollution kind of pooling up near the river. And people cannot change what they do not know, and information can be the cheapest way to make change. We often talk about like, that's gonna be too expensive. Well, if you have 100 people who know how to do it, you drive down the cost of labor and you increase the demand. It's as simple as that. And then seeks balance, efficiency and resilience, collaboration and competition, diversity and coherence, small, medium, and large organizations and needs. This is a push and pull. This is a constant negotiation. We will never find the perfect balance. We will never be in the middle. So that movement, like a current, like a wave, like the yin and yang, those things that pull, we will begin to seek and find those balances. So how do you put all these really great things into practice? These are some of my favorite buzzwords that I like to use and things that have really informed my study that has helped me think about what I'm going to go into right after this. So biomimicry. To design and production of materials, structures, and systems that are modeled on biological entities and processes. That's like looking at birds' wings and the shape of a beak, how flatworms regenerate, how the skin cells of frogs produce mucus that help them stay moist for a long period of time without being in water. Like there are all these little things that nature already does that we can learn from to address so many of the problems that we've created for ourselves, believing that we were beyond and should be able to dominate nature when we are literally of it. Permaculture is is a regenerative form of agriculture that is centered in rewilding, community resilience, and looking at indigenous and heirloom seeds and types of growing. So this is about like no-till. This is about seed saving and collection. This is about, pairing certain plants next to each other because they have a symbiotic and reciprocal relationship. And lastly, organic architecture. The way our buildings are designed directly determine how we interact with ourselves and each other. So, what materials are made out of, how it regulates temperature and heat, and how energy is created and distributed through a space directly affects how we see ourselves and the kind of relationships that we're going to have. University campuses are unique in their way because they are designed to be at a human scale and to invite density and then to invite activity and intellectual stimulation. That's why they're designed the way they are. So why aren't our cities in our larger communities designed in that way if that's what we say we want to see from our young people and for the future of our communities? So this takes me into how do you take all this into practice? Okay, this is a really great theories. These are great definitions. That's a great sense of thought, whatever. Here in Omaha, Nebraska, what we're looking at here is the former site of the Civic Auditorium. The Civic Auditorium was opened in 1954 and was this massive auditorium that took up this entire site here and was closed in 2014, torn down in 2016, and has been a vacant lot since. I was one of the last high school classes to graduate in the Civic Auditorium. This civic site was, Prince played there, the Commodores played there. It was one of Elvis's last venues that he performed at. George Wallace, who was the governor of Alabama running for president in 1968, specifically on a segregationist platform, came to Omaha, petitioned to get onto the ballot here and was successful in doing so. And protests broke out in response to that. So this is a very significant place. There are numerous other things I could name as well. But since then, it's just been vacant. And the current mayor has indicated that she's been in discussions with developers about this land. But the issue with that is that there has been no connection or conference with the community. So there has been no interaction with the general public being like, hey, this is what we want. This is right next to Creighton University, actually, and Central High School, my alma mater, as well. And we're seeing a large densification of apartments. But there's no park nearby, and this has not been dedicated as such. So I propose that we turn it into a place of healing, that this particular site become protected and be dedicated as Omaha Park. One, to recognize the Omaha tribe from which Omaha is named after, which means the people who move against the current. There was no park in the city of Omaha, or no place in the city of Omaha named after Omaha, ironically. And this particular area with its large footprint is next to a lot of places where young people concentrate, and Omaha is very bar heavy. So if you're under 21, there are very few places for you as a young person to attend free of charge, to be able to be present with your peers without having to be quiet or follow some type of rules or have to pay to be present. So I'm going to show you a little video that gives some background on this, and I hope y'all can hear it. Please let me know if you can. Can you hear it? This is soil, this is where it all began, and we need to come back to it. So it's an opportunity for us to come back to where it all started and work together to help heal it. This is the former site of the Civic Auditorium. I graduated high school here in 2012. When I was singing in school, we would come to the All City Music Festival here. And this is where all the children from all over the city would come together to sing one song. Like, how magnificent is that? You know, the Prince played here, Commodores, you know, the circus, these great gatherings, these significant moments in Omaha's history transpired right here. And we need space outside. You know, we've been isolated for over a year. Our downtown parks are all dirt right now. They're all under construction, won't be available until 2023. And here we are next to the Central High School, a great university, and next to the park, renovated and built. Where do people go outside to be there, if not right here? Mayor Jean Stother has indicated that she has been in discussions with developers about this site, which is concerning because this is city-owned land. This is publicly owned land. This was our space, and it should be our space. Any discussions about our space should happen with us. So I'm inviting you to be here and to take a look at 1804 Capitol and think about how we can turn this into Omaha Park. We commit the land to the land and to the Omaha tribe, and see this site as a place of healing and growth and potential for Omaha, and choosing what our heart is to become. Because right now, what we used to use to illustrate who we are is gone. So this is an opportunity for us to work together on the land to do something. So I wanted to share that video with you because I just finished editing it today, and it's on my website, and it's starting to send it out. I've put together a letter to send to city council members and to the mayor's office. I've shared it with a number of folks here in Omaha, members of the Omaha tribe, as well as other neighborhood and community leaders, because, you know, just within the last weekend, we've had almost a shooting a night in Omaha. And they overwhelmingly involve young people of color who do not have places to be. And we are looking at this, currently our county is building a new juvenile detention center. Like, we're putting all of our time, energy, and resources into destructive, extractive things that are not helping us heal or be better as a community whatsoever. It disproportionately impact Black and brown people, especially young people. And so I've been like, how do you do something about this? How do you bring these words, these principles, these ideas into practice? We have to stop talking about it in theory and, like, you know, some waiting for the magic energy crystal, which probably exists, but it's going to take some time to just discover that. Whereas, you know, our magic is when we are together, when we work together and collaborate and support these things and build community. So I invite you in your town, wherever you are, wherever you're from, to one, look up the name of your town, where it came from, who's it named after, why is it named after that person, place, thing, tribe, etc. Know where you come from and why you're here and how you got there in the first place. That's what helped me develop this passion for Omaha, because when I was 18, I was trying to bounce. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to be here. This place is lame. Like, it's not for me. And many young people still feel that way. But I left and came back because I recognized that there's a unique power and ability here, that when you are connected and you're aware of where you are, you can have so much more impact because you know who you are in relation. So a couple of resources, things that really inspire me: Fantastic Fungi. It's an incredible documentary. If you haven't seen it, check out the book. And then there's also Abstract, The Art of Design on Netflix. It's a great series. There's one specifically on biophilic design with an incredible designer from Israel. So I highly recommend checking those out. And then this is a nest I built next to my house. So if you are trying to keep it as simple as possible, you don't even want to talk to people, put some sticks together and see what you get. It helps you develop an appreciation for nest making and the things that animals do on a regular basis. And it can get you familiar with these principles of biophilic design. So I'll stop there. And I wanted to close out with a couple of books, and I don't know if you guys like books. I like books. Which is Inventing Western Civilization by Thomas C. Patterson. Even the word civilization and how it was used in barbarism and things like that to define groups of people and otherizing them to justify domination. Perfect. The Biophilia Effect by Clemens Arve, and I can put these in the chat. This is about the healing power of nature, that like simply just being outside close to green stuff makes us healthier people. And it's incredible. And there's some great like studies and data in here. So the justification of breaking up old parking lots and turning them into lawns and forests is directly supported by this. And then Biophilic Urbanism by Phillips James Tabb. This is a great resource. This is about how to put these things into practice, and it gives little case studies, designed, material references, all kinds of resources to talk about how cities and communities are recentering themselves around nature. So www.dawaune.one, it'll take you to my Tap bio page. It's info about me, there's a video, and then there is a sign up link. It's just a Google form, ask for like contact information and things like that, what you think about the design and input. And then I'll send out emails and text alerts about the pop-up on Saturday and other developments. So if you're like, hey, I really want to support it somehow or learn about it or just like stay up to date, you can go to that link and you can stay connected there.